Welcome to Between the Reads, where we shine a spotlight on some of the most talented Black authors in the industry to discuss their works of fiction and the inspirations behind them. Each episode will dive into the rich and diverse world of literature, exploring everything from historical fiction to romance and speculative fiction to YA and beyond. Tune in as we celebrate the voices of Black authors and the power of storytelling. Are you ready, Booze and Bros? Then sit back, relax, and let's get to it.
Still warm.
I was trying to catch Chelsea drinking her coffee, y'all.
Look, I need y'all to know that Audra was like, hey, you want to record this at 9 o'clock in the morning? And I would like you to know that my first alarm goes off at 9:15. So
I asked her what time was good. And when I said 9, she said cool. So 9 it is.
I'm just saying, like, the sun ain't even fully awake. She's like, why are y'all talking? Why y'all so loud? I'm trying to press snooze for another 15 minutes. And here y'all go kikiing first thing in the morning.
Yup. And for those of y'all that don't know, this is Rants and Rambles. This is the last episode for the month of March. At the end of every month, I do this with my good friend Chelsea of Written in Melanin, of the Melanin Library, of C.M. Lockhart, the author. We are here. By the time you hear this, it will be the last day of March. What have you been doing with your life? We are already 3 months down in the year. March is gone.
That's
Bye-bye.
crazy.
Bye-bye. Gone.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. Because I'm like, it's weird because it's just like when you're a kid, it takes forever for the year to go by. But then you hit adulthood and you blink and you're like, oh, by the way, we need to start preparing for like New Year's and Christmas.
Yes.
And it's just like, wait a second.
We were just in spring. Can we slow down?
And just a little wee bit. Just a wee bit. But I also realized that like as an adult, you do so much more. And it's just kind of like you have the ability to do things. And so you use your time way more effectively than when you're a kid. Simply because you can.
Yep.
Which is wild because I'm like, imagine how productive of a society we would be if like, because think about it, by the time you're like 13, 14, most people don't even want to go to school anymore because they're like, this is dumb. This is stupid. I don't like it. They don't let me talk to my friends. The lunch is crap. And on top of that, you're not learning anything that's going to be useful to your everyday life past like the 9th grade. That's just being real. And it's just like, why am I here? And it's like, really, you're just babysitting because you're a minor. It sucks.
Right.
Hate that for you. But imagine if you had all of that time as like starting at like 14 when you really start exploring things like what you want to do. And it's just like, oh, now I can actually put time and energy into this. Imagine all the things that you would have figured out that you didn't want to do before you hit 18 and had invested in it as a major. Like, crazy.
Yeah.
I talk to Ben about it all the time. I'm like, but they need to bring back apprenticeships. Like, go study under somebody and see if you actually like this thing before you devote your entire life and a bunch of money and energy and effort into being this thing. Because let me tell you, if I had worked up under a speech language pathologist beforehand, bruh.
Nope.
Wouldn't have done it. But I also think it's a thing where it's like, I feel like people need to tell kids like there are more jobs out there other than doctor, lawyer, scientist, because it's like there are a lot more jobs. I'm like, if I had known that I could have possibly been, I don't know, like an editor or an agent or acquiring or like just work in publishing like professionally, I definitely would have pursued that a lot more seriously, or even just gone for business. No. Because I've always kind of known that I didn't want to work for anyone else, but that's also not a thing you could just tell your parents. Like, I don't want to work for nobody. They're like, okay, but what do you want to do?
Right. It's like, well, it's funny because like Hampton, when we were there, they would always, they had career days and the employers would come on. You had to make sure you were dressed to the nines and all that kind of stuff. Too. Yeah. And my husband said that he was just like, well, what if you don't want to work for somebody else? Where's the program for that? And the funny thing is that Hampton now has an entrepreneur major. And I'm just like, wow, how things have changed.
Now, I don't know if A&T has an entrepreneur major because I haven't been keeping up with it like that. But I know that they had, business management and administration. Like they've always had that.
Yeah.
And my roommate was majoring in business and marketing, and so when she would tell me about her classes, part of me was like, I should have signed up for that. But I was also like, bruh, I'm like 3 years deep into this. I am not switching my major right now. Like, I got like a semester and a half left before I'm out.
Like,
We're
I'm done.
not starting
It's
back over from
too
ground
far
zero.
gone. Too far gone.
Too far gone. But
Yep.
it's also one of those things where I'm always like, what if things had been slightly different? But then I'm also like, everything happens for a reason, and you accumulate the experiences that you need to have to be successful. And that's cool, because I also know that if I had not done things the way that I did, I would not be doing what I'm doing currently, because I like to take the path of least resistance. This is why when it comes to writing, and I know I'm ranting, but this is Rants and Rambles. But this is literally why when it comes to writing, it upsets me when characters do things because of plot, because I'm like, you are taking the road of highest resistance for no reason. Right. And I'm just like, those paths have to be blocked off, because let me tell you, if I had not just straight up quit grad school, I was like, yeah, I'm not going back. F this. I'm done. Then I would have the opportunity to just like be like, oh, I could always go back to grad school. It's like, not, homie. I have a withdrawal fail on my transcript. Ain't no grad school taking me back. We done completely X'd out that opportunity.
That's gone.
We
bridge is burned.
That bridge. Yes. We burned that bridge pretty successfully. Same thing with teaching. Like, I left in the middle of a semester. I was just like, peace out. I ain't never coming back. Burned that bridge very successfully. So it's not like,
blew it up with
you can
dynamite.
go back to teaching. It's like, no, we forge ahead. We forge ahead.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you talk about paths. I mean, when I was a kid, I thought my librarian, because we had library day, like where we would pause and go to the library, and the librarian would teach us like the Dewey Decimal System and how to look things up with the card catalog and all that kind of stuff. And she would like read us a book, and it was always a race, especially if it was a really good book. It was a race to like who's gonna be able to check it out, because they would only have so many copies. And I thought my librarian was the coolest person in the world.
I still remember my librarian's name to this day.
I went up to her and was like, I want to be a librarian when I grow up. 70s, white woman, me. She says, oh no, you can't be a librarian. It's not a career for you. And I said, well, why not? She was like, because it's just not for people like you.
That's crazy.
That's 1970s. Remember, we're right on the cusp of the civil rights movement. Dr. King we were only 2 years, by that time, maybe 5 years past him being assassinated, living in New Jersey. And I was floored, because like at home, I would play library. Like when I was by myself in my house, I had all my little books, and I had the little thing where, I would pretend like I was sliding it on the little alarm thing, and, to desensitize it. Like, I played librarian. Yeah. I would get my friends in the neighborhood to come, and we would play librarian. Like, and I was always, of course, the librarian. I was the...
It's like, I don't know, y'all are clearly here to check out books. Like,
y'all are here to check out the books. I am the librarian. And when she did that, I was just like, just threw it off the table, because I was shocked. I did not expect that reaction. I was expecting her to be like, oh, that's great. And, this is what we do. No, none of that. And then the thing is, when I was in grad school, I was so good at like helping people find things and researching and stuff like that. This woman was like, are you studying library science? Like, are you, and people thought I worked at the library. I was like, no, I just, like doing this kind of stuff. And she was like, well, we have a library science degree. But again, like you said, I was 1 semester away from finishing my master's degree. I was not about to switch. I was like, I'm tired, because I was still dealing with burnout from undergrad school, even though there was a 3-year space between it. When I went back in for grad school, my brain was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? We don't want to do this anymore.
I feel like that really needs to be like discussed, because part of the reason that grad school did not work for me is because I was so burnt out from school already. And it's not that I was bad at school. I was really good at school. I graduated valedictorian. I graduated summa cum laude. And I was in the honors program in college. And I did all of the things. Like, I was a graduate assistant and everything. Like, I did all of the things. It's not that I was bad at it. I was just like, yo, I am sick of this. Like, I am tired. And the thing that got me with grad school wasn't even the workload, because the workload, that wasn't hard. I could do that in my sleep. It wasn't the clients. It was like, okay, this maybe isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life, but it's also not miserable. Like, okay, you can't talk. I come up with a plan. Now you can talk. Bingo. Right. Bingo, bango, we're done. Right. But what I hated, what I couldn't stand, was the people in charge, because I was like, oh, y'all are here because you have, like, power trips. And I am not the right one for this, because I'm going to say something. Like, if you come at me cross-eyed, I'm gonna come at you cross-eyed, and we're all going to be looking confused at each other, because no. And I'm also not self-sacrificing. I don't believe in a team mentality. I will not take one for the team. Like, I'm so sorry, unless your name is Benjamin and you are married to me. No, you're on your own. I suggest you make better decisions. I will absolutely, I'm not going to throw you under the bus, but I'm not pulling you out from under that bitch either. So,
right.
Maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like you said, I had a 3-year break between Hampton and grad school, and still, like, the burnout was real. The burnout came back, and I did well. I only had 1 B in grad school, and that was in the statistics class. That was really, really, really hard. But, you know, other than that, you know, I was, like I said, I was burned out, and I thought about it. I was like, maybe I should change, because I do want to be a librarian, and, you know, but
I thought about it.
But then I was just like, when I sat down and looked at how much stuff I would have to do, it basically is starting all over again. And I was like, And I had an assistantship that paid for my tuition. You know, and I wasn't sure if I could, you know, what the rules would be behind that. Would I be able to get another assistantship? Because I only had a teeny tiny little loan that I took out for my room and board and meal plan for 2 years, and that was it. And I calculated it out so that I didn't take out any more than I needed to take out. And I was like, that would mean more loans. Do I want to do that? Will they give me another assistantship? Or, you know, will they be like, nope, if you want to do switch, you're going to be on your own. And I was just like, nah, I'm good. I guess I'm just not meant to be a librarian. But
no, that's for real. Because when I was at A&T, during my, senior year, I won't say first semester of my senior year, I needed one last English, because I think I told you this before, but my freshman year of A&T was also my senior year at Dudley. So I had to take an English, but that English that I took went towards graduating high school. It didn't go towards my college transcript. So, but I had already taken all the Englishes that I needed for my actual degree. They were just like, you just need another one to, like, fill it out or whatever. So my advisor was like, well, you can take whatever one. As long as it's in the English department, you can take whatever class you want to. She was like, I recommend you take an easy one, but, you know, do you. Right? And so I was like, okay, cool. I got a free space, essentially. So I was like, I'm going to take a creative writing class, because that's what I enjoy doing. She's like, you want to take a creative writing class? You're going to have to write a lot. And I was like, ma'am, if you knew my life, if you knew who I was, you wouldn't be telling me that right now. Okay? Chill out. And so I took it, and it was one of the most, like, eye-opening classes, because that was the first time I actually took, like, a constructive class on, like, how to write and stuff. And I remember having a professor, and he was just like, I remember I was one of the only people, who took it seriously, because everybody else was there because they wanted to be, like, in journalism or mass communication. They had to take it, and I was like, no, I want to take it because, like, I like to write stories. And so when I would go to his office hours or whatever, and we would talk about, you know, what I had written, he was like, you know, you actually have, like, a talent for this. Like, what's your major? And I was like, oh, I'm speech path. And he was like, do you want to switch to creative writing? He was like, I will support you, because he was basically the head of his department or whatever. He was like, I will approve that, and I'll see if I can get you some money for a scholarship or something. And I was like, sir, I'm a senior.
You're like, I'm not starting over.
I was like, I have exactly 4 classes before I graduate, and I'm already on a full scholarship. And the scholarship that I was on covered 4 years. I only needed 3 of it, so I had, like, an extra year or whatever. But I'm like, if I switch majors right now, I was like, we're talking about adding another 2 years on top of that, and on top of the one that would be covered. So I'm like, no. But thank you.
Not
I
happening.
appreciate that. And he was
Not
like, well, you could
happening.
come back for grad school and we could talk about that. I'm like, I already have to go to grad school for speech path, and no. But thank you. But I always think about it because it's like, when you look back, it's like, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I had been like, yeah, okay,
let's do it.
I'll come back for I'll just go to grad school at A&T, and I'll get my degree in creative writing. I wonder what that would have taken me.
Yeah.
But I'm also really glad that I didn't do that, because I feel like I would have been kind of chauffeured down this path to go towards traditional publishing. And the thing about me, Andra, that you probably know already, is I have an ego, okay? And I already know this. So if I had been further hyped up, nobody's going to be able to tell me nothing. So it was probably best that I didn't go down that route.
Right.
So,
That's funny.
being an indie author, that I needed that to remain humble.
Listen, plus I know I have heard several indie authors say, that they are glad they didn't get an MFA because, they teach you all these rigid rules and it really almost kind of beats the creativity out of you. So, I'm glad that you didn't, because you may have never even come up with, we are dying gods and we are the origin.
I absolutely would have.
You think so? You think it would have been the same, though, as it is now if you had done it traditionally versus indie? I feel like it wouldn't have.
I feel like the writing itself, the story and the writing itself would have ultimately been the same, because it was a result of depression. And that was just where I was at in my life. And the things that led to that would not have been any different. I still would have hated school with all my being. I still would have been married. I still would have had the conflicts that I was having, with my family and, my identity outside of being, like, essentially leaving my family. I still would have had all of those things. So the story itself would have still come about. The prose might have been a little bit different. Like, the sentence structure might have been a little bit different. But the heart and the core of the story would have been the same. At least I think so. But
see, I feel like it would have been the same when you wrote it, but I feel like if you went traditionally published,
it would have published for sure. It would have been different.
It would have been different.
Oh yeah,
published.
because Sarah would have had a much higher role in the story.
Of course she would have. Yeah.
And I was talking about this with Bethany yesterday, and I was just like, you know what? It irritates me when people are like, oh, but because I told you were there when I had the editor, and he was like, oh yeah, Sarah should like lead the rebellion, and she should be like naturally really good at it because she's the crown princess. And yada yada yada. And I'm like,
no.
You mean this girl who has never been trained? And the thing is, it's so wild because I feel like people act like leadership, like good leadership, is like inherent and it's just naturally, like it's a natural talent that you're just born with. And I think some people have an affinity for things, but you still have to be taught. You still have to be trained. And I'm like, this girl has never been trained. She can't talk in front of people. She can barely walk by herself on a flat road without tripping. And in world, like there's an in-world explanation why she is not physically attractive. Like people do not look at her and think she's pretty cute, needs to be saved. She's literally out here on the struggle bus, back of it actually. Yep. And you want her to be like, yeah, we're gonna lead the rebellion, and people are just gonna fall in line. That's kind of weird, homie. That's a very weird thought. Yeah, and it's so white centric. And I feel like that would have been the thing that, and it's part of the reason why I'm really glad that I didn't do traditional publishing, because as I said earlier, I am the problem, and if you talk to me crooked, we all gonna be crossed up in this bitch, because no, I know, see the thing about me is I am my father's daughter, and I know a good amount of my family history and the things that shaped, you know, my dad and my grandmother and my great grandmother and the actions that they took, and a lot of it in, you know, South Carolina is racist. So it's just kind of like, I am who I am and I know that. So there's always going to be some things where people, if they say like, oh, you should, I absolutely shouldn't. And the fact that you even suggested that, I feel like that's a microaggression. I feel like you should address that, because why would you tell me, looking like I do, that I need to center the white girl in my story? Who
Right.
is that serving? What benefit does that have? Because this is my book. If you want the white girl to be centered, there are already plenty of books like that, but I suggest you go talk to Susan McSusan over there and see if she wants to do that, because I'm not.
Said Susan McSusan.
Susan McSusan.
I can't with her.
It's just the idea of telling
It's
people
like,
that they
want
should write something
for the
that's
white
not
gays.
them.
That's what we're supposed to do. We're always supposed to do something for the white gays.
Yeah.
You know, and thinking about that, it's so funny that being black in this country is so interesting.
It's so interesting.
Because, like, you know, there's AI, there's ChatGPT, which I use a lot to help me springboard ideas. Like, I'll write something and then I'll take it into ChatGPT and say, you know, do this to it. And I give it directions, and, you know, it's very interesting. It's a powerful tool, especially if you know how to use prompts and things like that. But, you know, I'm sitting here on my laptop getting ready for this show, and I see this little, you know, Copilot. I'm like, what the hell is this? It's a preview. And it's AI for Windows.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's so funny because whenever I put in anything, whether it's ChatGPT or here, whenever I put in anything about black books, black authors, and I say, give me some topics to discuss. Like today, I said, you know, I said doing an end of the month podcast episode for my podcast about black authors and their books is called Rants Rambles, and for the final episode of the month we talk about every and anything, not just books. So this is what it gives me. It says here, it gave me, let's see, 7 things. Representation matters. Hidden gems, you know, talk about lesser known black authors and their outstanding books. Genre exploration within black literature. Impactful memoirs.
Ooh, memoirs.
Yes. Classic versus contemporary. And then it mentioned Toni Morrison's Beloved and James Baldwin's Go Tell It on a Mountain. Intersectionality. And book adaptations. But it's interesting to me that representation and diversity and all that always comes up whenever I put in anything about black authors or black books. Like, it never just gives me, you know, ideas of things to talk about that are just stories. Like, yes, I love historical fiction, and I realize that when we're dealing with historical fiction and black people, it's always going to be centered around race, because our history in this country is centered around race. But it never just gives me, like, stuff to talk about book related with black authors that doesn't include centering the stories around race. And I just find that interesting that even AI is programmed to...
Oh yeah, because it's pulling from all of the information that's on the internet. And whenever you have black authors in a conversation, almost 100% of the time it's about diversity, it's about inclusion. And that's the issue that I think a lot of people don't understand, because it comes up in like smaller author spaces, usually when we're upset about the panels that we've been invited on. And it's one of those things, you know, people say, oh, you take that to the group chat. It's in the group chat. But I also feel like it's a conversation that needs to be had a lot more publicly about how, as black people and authors, we write about all the same things that every other race and culture does. And so it's very disrespectful to throw, if you have a panel of 5 people and you're inviting 7 black authors, it's very disrespectful to throw all 5 or 5 black authors on that panel and then only have, like, of the 15 panels you have, only have like one black person, if any, on any of the other ones. And it's just like, that's so just demeaning. It puts us in this box where it's like, oh, the expectation is that black authors are only there to teach other people about what it is to be black. And it's like, no, if you're going to talk about comedy and romance, there also needs to be a black author on that panel. If you're going to talk about, you know, adding fear into a psychological horror or a psychological thriller, then you also need to have black authors on that panel. If you're also going to talk about historical fiction, you need to have black authors on that panel. The thing is, I feel like we're relegated to, oh, we're talking about the importance of inclusion and exploring the genres within black black fiction. Like, I'm sorry, we have the same genres because it's all the same. They're all books. Like, what does that even mean? Do you think we're making things up over here? Like,
right. Like,
it's so
no,
confusing.
we write in your genre. The genres are the genres, and we write in them. There's no genres for black books.
There are no genres for black books at all. I feel like that is a word that people need to hear. And it's not that we're doing something differently, because it's like, I wish people would consider the fact that as a black person, when I go into white spaces, like, they are the other. Like, I'm not the other in that situation from my perspective. It's everyone else. And so it's so weird to be spoken to like, oh, well, because even like with other people of color, and I say people of color because not all of them are black, right? Or black, what is it? Black only. There we go. But even in conversations with them, they'll be like, I've had conversations where they're like, oh, you like intentionally subverted, the expectations of like white mythology in your book, and like white religion, and like deconstructing that, and da-da-da. I'm like, is that what I'm doing? I mean, that wasn't the intent. I wasn't thinking about white people when I wrote my book, like, at all. I wasn't thinking about deconstructing colonialism. No, it's a fantasy world, and I just wanted black people to be considered beautiful. You know how that works is if there's not some other person forcefully changing the way you think about things, and enforcing like, hey, I'm what you need to be chasing after. Because if you think about it, right, at least from my perspective, and I could be wrong, this is just personal experience, Rants and Rambles, right? And it's also like 9 o'clock in the morning, so whatever, my thoughts haven't started. It's kind of like, I feel like in a lot of ways, white people insert themselves into spaces acting like they're God. And it's just like, okay, humble thyself, because no, right? And it's just kind of like, because when I think about how I wrote my story, it's just like, the reason why black women are considered to be the most beautiful standard in my world is because that's what the goddess is, and the closer you are to her image, the closer you are to being closer to the ideal. And it's this idea that, if you look in any church in America, they're gonna say that Jesus is white, which is a lie, bold-faced. But they warped the idea of God to fit what they look like, so they can enforce this idea of we are at the top of the hierarchy. And it's just like, that's weird. And it's such a grotesque use of religion. And it's just kind of like, y'all are gross, y'all are weird. But then you want people to believe that you are the standard that we should be striving for, but then you also lack the capabilities to think outside of yourself. Like, to me, and I say that as a generalization, if you hear this and you take offense, then you should take that up with your therapist. Because if it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't hurt. Because, I mean, that's what the internet is. It's always them inserting themselves into our spaces, and then, saying, well, if I'm not welcome here, or... And you're not, so you can go. Right. Like, that's how I feel. I'm not welcome, and you're not, so you can go. Yeah, like, why do you feel the need? It's like, why do we live so rent-free in their heads? Why is it any time that we have a space that we've developed for us, they have to come and find it and either try and be the person that's like, oh, I'm going to be your ally, and they it's like they say stuff because they want you to give them flowers for acknowledging how screwed up their mentality, the mentality of their race is. Like, I'm not going to give you flowers for that, for acknowledging that y'all got some problems. No, I'm not going to give you flowers for that. I'm not going to give you accolades for that. So they either do that, or they come in and it's like, well, why does it have to be about race? Or it's, well, I just don't feel welcome here. Well, it wasn't created for you. Well, why do you need this space? Okay, well, if y'all hadn't written all them rules, y'all literally had laws excluding us from all of your spaces, making it necessary for us to have our own spaces to this day.
if you didn't want us to have these spaces, you shouldn't have made them so necessary. So don't come in here playing victim now.
And I think that's the thing that always kind of gets me when it comes to conversations like that, because it's kind of like, well, why do you need this space? It's like, well, let's unpack that. Why do you feel the need to be in this space if it's not for you?
Right.
You see how not being welcome in a space makes you question it? That's literally, and it's
what
like,
you all have done to us for 400 years.
It's what you do to us consistently. And you know, even when I am in those conversations, it's like I don't even want to necessarily take it to historically what's been done, because you know, people don't want to hear that. And I don't mean that in a sense of like they don't want to hear it, they need to hear it. I mean it in the sense of, in a moment, it's just like, I'm not going to try to offer reason and logic to someone who is acting from a place of emotion, right? But it's like, in this moment, I'm not talking about you, your ancestors, historically, what this country is built on. I'm talking about you, as a person, your actions right now. And it's just like, you as a person acknowledge the fact that when we are together, you feel like you are being excluded, and that makes you uncomfortable. However, you lack the critical thinking to understand that you do the things to us to make us want to be together, because it's literally an us against them. And it's like, until you address the fact that in your home, in your workplace, in your grocery store, in every aspect of your life, everything is set up to make you feel comfortable to the exclusion of other people, then we can't have a realistic conversation, because it's not about you. Because the thing is, when Black authors, or even authors of color, I'm going to open it up very broadly for a moment. When we say that, hi, we want to be included, the fact that you feel like we're talking to you already puts you in acknowledgement that you acknowledge that you are the person who has the power in this situation. First of all, that's thing number one. But then thing number two is, you feel like if everyone's included, you are going to be then excluded. And it's just like, that's not inherently how it works, but because that's how you see it, that's why people are being left out.
And because that's what you've done.
And that's what you've
got
done.
A guilty conscience.
And at the end of the day, I feel like the root of almost every angry white person that I have interacted with in the modern age, right? So I'm not talking about, you know, the people back then. I'm only talking about the people that I have interacted with in my adulthood, right? It comes, the things that they say and the things that you've mentioned, talking about, oh, well, I don't see color, I don't understand why it has to be about race. It's like, you speak so clearly from a place of fear that if we were to get together, if we were to build something without you, if we were to do something that you were not included in, you are so afraid that we are going to do to you what you have done to us, and that frightens you to the point of not allowing us to exist peacefully. And the thing is like, that's something that you need to address, because you want to be like, well, I didn't do those things, I'm not guilty, and yet and still you're acting from a place of guilt. Yet and still you're acting from a place of fear. Yet and still you're acting from a place of, you know, that if retribution was to be dealt out, you have no room or space to complain.
You are dead to rights.
Frightens you.
Dead to rights. Dead to rights. For
so
sure.
It's just like, you need to address that as a human being, instead of putting it off on other people to make you feel comfortable, because it's not my job to make you feel comfortable. You need to stare your ghosts in the face and acknowledge it, and then you need to look at the world that they have built, and you have to see it for what it is, because it's just like, the reality of it is, most of us don't want to interact with you. Most of us have no interest in being in your clubs. Most of us just would like to be left alone, in truth. Like,
and do our own thing and just be allowed to thrive.
Be allowed to exist in peace.
Can we just reach our potential, please?
Yeah.
Unencumbered.
And I also think that's the thing, because it's just like, we naturally, as a people, right, come up and create things that other people want. And it's not just white people, it's white people, it's Asian people, it's Hispanic people. Every culture pulls from Black culture. And they twist it into something that they can then claim as their own. right? And it's always so interesting because there's always a conversation on the internet of like, oh, should we be gatekeeping? And in my mind, me being petty McPetty, hell yeah. Like, no, I'm sorry. Because here's the thing, if you want Chinese food, guess what? You have to go to a Chinese restaurant. You have to come up off some coins for it, right? Whereas with, you know, black cuisine, it's like, oh, people just want the recipe so they can do it at home, just so they can bastardize it into something that it's not, so we can have conversations about it. Like, no. That that's not what it's about. It's like with every other culture, you're expected to pay for access. There are some things that you just don't know about. The things that you have to acknowledge, that is outside of my culture, but for whatever reason, black culture does not get that same respect. And it's just like, no, I'm not sharing this with you. And I feel like it's kind of like that conversation that I used to see around on the internet where it was like a am I the asshole Reddit, I want to say, where basically some parent was like, am I the asshole because I didn't make my kid share his toy at the playground or whatever? And basically, kid was at the playground, they had their toy that they brought and they were playing with it, having a good time, and some other kid came up and was like, hey, can I play with you? And kid was like, no, this is my toy. And the other kid got upset and told their mom, and so their mom comes over and was like, hey, little Tommy would like to play with Jason, so could you and tell him to like share his toy so they can play together? And the parent was like, no, she was like, well, he acts nicely, and it's like, okay, thank you, but that doesn't require that my child say yes. My child, he asked, my child said no, that is the answer, and he is not required to share his toy with your kid. If your kid wants that toy, you can go to Walmart and buy it yourself, or whatever. And then the other parent got so indignant and started like yelling and stuff, and the other parent was like, look, you are weird and my kid is never playing with yours, like, goodbye, good day, sir. Right. And I think about that because I feel like
because what would she be teaching her kid if she made her kid acquiesce to this other parent and said, okay, well, you know, they asked, so you have to say yes? No, because now you're teaching this person, you're teaching your child that
they have to do things that make them uncomfortable, that other people don't have to respect their no or their boundaries, and that's not what that means.
No, that's not what that means. Like, no, I said no, my child said no, my child doesn't want to share their toy. It is not a community toy, so...
And in that situation, in the broader scheme of things, I feel like black culture is that kid with the toy who's saying no, and I say white culture because realistically the issue here at the fundamental root of all of this is that in America there is no such thing as white culture. White people don't have a culture. That's why they take everything. It's kind of like how in color theory, you know, we're not going to get into that because technically that's completely different, but the point is, you know, they absorb everything from other cultures, and that is their slapdash Frankenstein culture put together, right? And I'm not saying that there's anything inherently wrong with that. I'm saying that it's wrong when you then allow your child to go take that toy from the person who told you no when you asked for it, and then you assert that it is my toy, you have to share, you can't tell me no. And I feel like being black in America is essentially living in a world where you recognize that you are not allowed to say no to so many things unless you be deemed the problem.
Right. Yep. Yeah.
It's
like
exhausting.
that whole, you know, somebody white does something cool, they can dance, they have rhythm, they whatever, and then it's, oh, like, you're invited to the cookout. No, you're not. Please stop doing that. Please stop inviting people to the cookout just because they can dance or just because they acknowledged that, you know, they pointed out racism or they pointed out, you know, a privilege. Please stop doing that. Please stop doing that.
The idea of being invited to the cookout is that it's supposed to be a safe space. That was the whole idea of being invited to the cookout. You have to be a safe space. And here's the thing, I don't care how well-meaning you are, but the fact that you have to shuck and jive and prove that you can be a safe space does not mean that you are a safe space. And it's just like that has been proven time and time and time and time and time again. And even as everybody knows, all skin folk ain't kin folk. So I'm definitely not inviting no kin folk who's not skin folk.
Right.
Absolutely not. And I feel like, here's the thing, I feel like saying this makes people are like, oh, well, you're the problem. And it's just like,
no, not.
But here's the thing, I feel like so many people have been like, oh, we should all get along, all peace. And I'm just kind of like, you know what, I could be wrong, right? Because also keep in mind it's like 9 o'clock and I'm tired. And you know, I'm be real with you, I've had a very rough couple of weeks, and it's just kind of like my mentality is really just like burn it all down, you know. And last couple of months, just like watching the way the world interacts with people, with black and brown people in general, I have no sympathy or patience for anyone at this point. So prefacing all with that, I'm just kind of like, you know, there is a reason why God separated the continents. Okay, we were all in our respective places, and then somebody
doing
had
our
to,
own thing.
and somebody had to get upset and be like, "Well, why they got more than me?" Take that up with Jesus, homie.
Right.
Like, you're literally going around stealing things from other people. And then honestly, the thing that re-radicalized me, because I've already been radical. I've been radical since I was like 7. Okay. And it's just so crazy because like that's what it does to you when you grow up and you're the only black kid in your school, and everybody, you have to like be mentally prepared to defend yourself at any given moment, because the people that you think are your friends will absolutely turn on you in a hot minute and pretend like they don't know you and be talking shit about you behind your back into your face. And you have to recognize that, hey, I'm the only one here. Can I fight all of them at the same time? How do I get out of this situation? Who is an actual ally? And it's just
That's
like
where the militant midget came from.
I mean, I get it. I really do, because it's like I'm not a violent person, but I also recognize the fact that, like, growing up, I was not one who could blend in. I always stood out in a crowd, and it's just kind of like kids don't like that, and kids are mean, and that doesn't change just because you're the only black one in the room, you know. So it's just kind of like you kind of have to pick and choose your battles, and when your entire life is set up that way, when you get to be an adult, you're like, I don't want to be around you. Like, this is exhausting. It's so exhausting. And it's like I said, I feel like when you say that to people, they're like, well, why don't you, because I've had conversations with people about this. Like, I have a friend, and we've been friends since the 6th grade, so we go way back. And we had a conversation recently, and I said, you know, very, very blankly, like, I prefer to be around black people. Like, when I'm curating my personal circle, I do discriminate. Like, there's no other way to say it. Like, I pick and choose who I allow into my safe spaces. And 100% of the time, white people do not make the cut. Like, we can be acquaintances. We can be cool. We can collaborate. I have no issue with you on a professional and most of the time even personal level. But when we start talking about the inner workings of my personal life and my emotions and the things that I trust people, the personal parts of myself that I trust people with, there are certain people who do not make the cut. And so when we were having the conversation, she was like, well, why do you think like that? And people are just people. And, you know, there are black people as well who, you know, have caused you bad experiences. I was like, you're absolutely right. However, on the grand scale of all the experiences that I've had in my life, almost all of them have come from people who looked at me as the other. And it has come from a place of having to prove myself. Like, even when it was friendship, it wasn't offered until I was shown to have some worth. And like in school, like, oh, I can help you with your homework, or I know the answers to the questions, or, you know, my parents sent me with enough money to get pizza and ice cream on Fridays. Or it's like, oh, you have some external value that I can manipulate. It had nothing to do with me. And it's just like, when those are your formative memories and interactions, as an adult, it's like, I don't have anything against those people, because everyone's looking out for themselves, and I understand that everyone is looking for the best way to navigate life, and I don't fault you for that. However, I am not in turn required to be open and understanding and offer an olive branch of friendship, because this, in that same token, it's just like, no one's offered that olive branch to me for me to accept, and I am not the person to argue that I should be the bigger person, because I'm sorry, if I'm not Michelle Obama, if they go low, I'm going straight to hell, because we can all be down here together. No.
I saw there's an indie author. He's actually coming on my show on Friday. He said he had an interaction with someone, and he was like, "If you go low, I'll dig your grave and laugh while I bury you."
Hey, we are all
I
here
just
together.
was like, "Woo!"
Like, I remember talking to my mom, or maybe it was you, I don't know. But the thing about me is, I always tell people this, I'm really not very nice. It's a facade for the internet, okay? Believe me, when someone tells you who they are, believe them, okay? I am not a very nice person, and even though my facade, I try to keep that pretty consistent on the internet. In real life, I am more so the type of person, because, there's a saying, it's just like, if you were on fire, I would piss on you to put you out, right? Mm-hmm. Cool. I'm the type of person where, depending on how you fall into my life, I'm like, if you were on fire, if it started to rain, I'd get you an umbrella. I'd build you a shelter. There are some people like that in my life where it's just like, no, I'm not going to set you on fire, but you're already on fire. I will happily make sure you continue to burn. Okay? You need to understand that's who I am.
I'm not going to start it, but I will flame it.
I will make sure it continues. Yes.
I will fan the flames of your fury.
So it's just like I feel like part of being alive is also acknowledging what kind of person you are. And the thing is, I say that and we laugh about it, but in my experience, the reason why the conversation generally comes back to race is because all of the things that I talked about in the beginning of this podcast about the path that I did not take, and the reason I burned this bridge is guaranteed because there was a white woman who tried me, and I was like, my choices at this point are either to go to jail or to leave, and I chose to leave
because I'm not giving up my freedom for you.
Yep. At UNCG, it was a white woman. Her last name was Hamuka. Hated her, and she was so racist. And I was literally in her office, and I literally had a thought of either I'm going to go across this desk and beat this woman to death, or I'm going to leave. And so I decided to withdraw fail from UNCG, and I left the state. So that's what it was. And then with teaching, I was in an office. It wasn't a white woman this time, but the same thought was like, either I'm going to go across this table and I'm going to beat this woman to death, or I'm going to leave. So I left her office. The next day I brought my little wagon to school, packed up my entire classroom, and then I left. And then shortly later I left the state, because the thing is, I'm an A or Z type person. A or Z. There is no in between. So either I'm cool with you, or one of us has to go. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is. That's what it is. And it's always just like,
and I'm so glad that you didn't decide that I had to go, because I don't know who Uncle Rilo is. Did I say it wrong? I did.
Uncle Iro. But nah. Because here's the thing. If I don't talk to you no more, if I don't fuck with you no more, I really don't. There is no in between. There is no in between. Like, literally. I had a friend recently, and she was my best friend. She was the maid of honor at my wedding, and we were close. And she came at me with some off the wall shit, and I sat on it for about 3 days, and I was like, okay, which way are we going with this? And I was like, you gotta go. So I just straight up told her, I was like, I don't want to be friends with you no more. Please don't call me anymore. And I have not spoken to her since. Sometimes you gotta go.
Sometimes you gotta go.
Gotta go. I don't believe in carrying toxicity in your life just because, and that's the thing. I think that's the part of the reason why I am also so radical with everything, because when it comes to the government, I'm like, Marie Kondo everything. Nothing is safe, and I'm like, this government is no longer serving us. And because the thing is, it's always wild to me when I see polls and stuff where it's like, 70 to 80% of the American population disagree with this, which means if 80% of the general population disagree, that means we're talking about the people who are making the decisions are the 10% who are in control. And it's like, there's no reason why the 10% in control should be able to do something that directly contradicts the 80% that are disagreeing with them.
Yep.
And it's just like, that's insane. But then when you say things like, let's get rid of the whole thing and try again, like fire everyone, people are like, oh, we can't do that. Why the fuck not?
Why not?
Why not? Because it's clearly not working. You can't fix a system that you're still using. You can't clean the paintbrush that you're still using. Okay? You can't fix fix an oven that's currently baking a cake. You have to shut it down for a time.
Exactly.
And it's just like, I don't understand what the problem is. I really don't understand what the problem be. And even if you're like, okay, well, in state term limits, there should never be any job that is a lifetime appointment. Like,
hell no.
No. And as with every job where you have to have a review, your job should be up for review at regular intervals. Like, are you doing your job? If not, you can go. You can be yeeted, bruh.
You are no longer useful.
Yeah.
Time for you to find something else to do.
Yeah. And I also feel like their pay should be capped. Like, you should never be able to make more than what the average person working minimum wage is going to make in their lifetime. Boom. Now you have sufficient reation, because it's not about power and it's not about money. You have to be here because you're actually trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, that's a good point. Like, you're not going to get a dope salary and be able to live above what your constituents are doing. If you have to live in the same conditions that they do, and you have to deal with the same financial woes that they do, you're going to be more motivated to figure out what is wrong, figure out what is broken, and fix it.
Exactly. You need to be one of us if you're going to represent us, because the thing is, it's the same thing that is the issue with books. It's the same reason why television sucks. It's the same reason why so many people are actually not very good at what they do. And it's because you're trying to represent a group of people that you don't actually represent. Like, and it's part of the reason why when people are like, oh, I'm a white author, I would like to write, about black characters. And I'm always like, you should not be writing black stories. There's a difference between having a black character in your book and writing a story from where the primary perspective is from a black character experiencing inherently black situations.
Yep.
You, as a white person, cannot talk about the effects of a microaggression against your hair, because it's something that you have never experienced. And therefore, the issue with that is not that you can't do research, because there's been enough people talking about it, especially in the big old age of 2024. There's enough people talking about it that you could probably get an idea of what it's like, but it's not something you've experienced. And what you are inherently trying to do is write representation for a group of people that you do not exist as part of. We don't want representation from someone who doesn't look like us. And it's just kind of like, that is the part that I feel like so many people are being purposely obtuse about. Like, I am not an Asian woman. I have never been an Asian woman. I will probably never be an Asian woman the way the world continues to go. So, trying to sit here and act like I know what it's like to grow up in Vietnam or in Japan, when A, I've never been there, B, I don't have any friends or people that I know who have that lived experience, and there is no reason for me to write that.
Exactly.
But I'm doing it because I don't see a lot of people writing stories with this type of representation. It's not my representation to write, and therefore I do not. It's really that simple. It's really that simple.
It really is. It really is. But,
it's not rocket science.
It's not. It's not. It really isn't. It really isn't.
But I feel like when you say that to people, they're like, but see, the thing is, you're trying to center yourself again. And it's
like,
not about
don't do that. Just humble yourself, realize you're wrong, and just move on.
Yeah.
Move on.
And I think it's also that conversation where people are like, oh, but there's, I don't know, I feel like this is the reality that as black people and people of color, we're told that we have to work harder to get anywhere. And therefore we do. and therefore when you just take away the skin or whatever, and you just put skill next to skill, one person will always outmatch the other. And it's just like, instead of seeing that and being like, oh, I need to work harder, I need to do better, you see it and be like, I need to remove this person. Like, that's a very specific way to view competition. When, instead of thinking I need to be better, you think I need to sabotage the other team.
Yep. That's that colonialism.
You know what? Colonialism wouldn't be so bad if they would just wash.
Yes, it would. Because colonialism is just taking what belongs to somebody else.
Like, I wouldn't be so mad if you took it if you wash your hands first. Like, Jesus, the offense.
I'm done. I'm
literally saw.
I'm not doing this with you.
I literally saw a video on Twitter, and these white women were talking about how they don't wash their hands, and like, oh my God, me either. It started when I was in college, and I just looked at my roommate, and I was just like, I'm not gonna wash my hands. And she's like, oh my God, me either. And they were talking about how like they just run the water so that the other people who live with them don't think that they're disgusting. And I'm like, so you acknowledge that you are actually disgusting. You just don't want them to think that about you, because like, here's the thing. Here's the thing that tickles my gum, for lack of a better term. Why?
Tickles your gum.
Why would you stand there and let the water run and not wash your hands? The water is already running. And then somebody was in the comments like, oh, I don't wash my hands in like public restrooms because I don't want to touch anything. And I'm like, girl, what?
A lot of those public restrooms have those things where you just put your hand under and the water turns on. You ain't got to touch nothing. And you ain't even got to touch the thing for the paper towel to come out. You just wave your hand in front of it and it comes out.
And I'm just like,
I don't understand that.
Public spaces is when you need to be washing your hands the most, because, and this is literally why I'm like, I need to clearly just figure out how to make my own clothes, because you don't wash your legs, you don't wash your hair, you don't wash your body, you don't wash your hands. So, and you want to walk into like a Target and try on clothes and touch things? Bruh, you need to be in a bubble. Like, do not interact with other human beings. You have not earned the right, because homegirl in the video was like, people back then didn't wash their hands either, and there were less diseases. So I'm like,
I'm wrong. What?
So I'm like, who taught you that? Who lied to you? But then apparently they don't believe in like facts, because also measles is coming back as like a childhood disease, because vaccines are bad. And I'm like, the levels of stupidity that people possess is absolutely batshit insane.
Listen, I don't.
Like,
that's a whole nother podcast, Chelsea. That's a whole nother podcast.
I'm sorry. I'm just literally at a point where I'm like,
that's a whole nother show.
Y'all are so committed to being your own demise, but not only must you ruin your life, you must take other people down with you. And I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how you can be like, yeah, I'm gonna go to a bathroom and I'm gonna wipe my ass, but I'm still clean. I'm not going to use soap and water. Like, do you know raccoons wash their hands before they eat? You're literally dumber than a raccoon. Like, think about that. Think about that.
I can't. She said it. That's all I have now is a picture in my head of a raccoon washing his hands, looking at them like, washing his hands and looking at her like, you're not gonna wash your...
Like, what this is... Y'all bipedal niggas don't do this? What? I'm confused. And I don't get it, Audra. And I'm like, you don't feel disgusting? Like, you don't feel icky? Like, you don't feel... Like, I will wash my hands if I'm like, it's been a couple of hours.
Let me just go wash my hands.
Let me go wash my hands. And I'm just like, y'all eat food that these people prepare? And I'm like, y'all already got cats on the counter. Y'all already don't use cutting boards. Y'all already don't use any type of seasoning. And you telling me you seasoning it with urine and shit because you don't wash your hands? You telling me you done been petting your dog and petting your cat and you've been doing all of this, you know, went to the bathroom 3 times? And I'm like, you ain't never thought to put no soap and water on your hands.
Chelsea, I can't.
Like, that is just... It's just so batshit insane to me. Like, I don't understand the logic.
Chelsea. She had her hands up here like this the whole time, y'all. Like, I'm
confused.
Like, she trying to hold her braid in because it's about to explode.
But the thing is, it's just like, even running your fingers through your hair, y'all don't wash that shit either. So it's not like, imagine, and then you just be touching everything.
That's why I don't do potlucks.
I ain't never done that, but I'm just saying, like.
And at work, people be bringing in food, like, nah, I'm good.
But y'all making me for real not want to leave my house, like, for real. Like, I
There's
can't
a whole
even...
bunch of people I just read today. Is a whole bunch of people that were happiest when the pandemic started because they were like, I ain't gotta leave my home. Like, y'all are encouraging me not to leave my home. Bet.
Yeah, we're all encouraging people not to touch me. Love that. Love that. Like, at this point, I am never shaking another hand again unless I know you and I can confirm that you are the type of person to take a shower. You not coming nowhere near me, mine, or my family. Absolutely the fuck not. Cause
Chelsea,
if you're the type to, if I ask you to pass me some hand sanitizer at a table and you're like, I don't have any, I'm leaving. I'm not sharing a table with you. I need you to be a little bit germophobic to be my friend. That is a requirement at this point.
Oh, Chelsea.
If I ask you what's your favorite body wash and you're like, I don't know, we're not friends. Okay? If you tell me you use a damn loofah, we're not friends. Okay? You can use the African scrub, the little shoop shoop. You can get a washcloth, shoop shoop. But you telling me you had a self-foaming loofah? Bitch, we're not friends.
And on that note,
Anyway,
we're at an hour.
Oh, I'll stop then. My bad.
Only reason I'm not letting you go on is because I got a packed day. I got stuff I got to run out and do. But Rants and Rambles. Y'all know what time it is. This is Chelsea, better known as CM Lockhart, author of We Are Dying Gods, We Are the Origin. Flip that. We Are the Origin, We Are Dying Gods. Listen, my brain is tired too because I got this like contact dermatitis. I don't know how I got it. I went to the doctor. She was like, obviously something you touched. Did you change your detergent or whatever? I was like, no, I have no idea. I just woke up and it was there. So they put me on this, something that's kind of like Benadryl but stronger, and I have to take it at night. So I wake up in this cloud in the morning. That brain fog, because I'm very sensitive to allergy medicine. So I eat like myself.
I understand.
Right now.
I understand.
Right now. But, yeah. So, Chelsea, We Are Dying Gods. No. Did it again. We Are the Origin. We Are Dying Gods. Those are her books. It's just a duology, right? No, there's a third
trilogy. There's a third one coming.
There's a third one coming. But she's also the creator of the Melanin Library. She also is the founder and host of the Melanin Chat. That is every other Tuesday live stream, and I am her co-host.
My amazing co-host.
Oh, she's so wonderful. And y'all know me, I'm Audra, Between the Reeds, and I want to let y'all know, Daughter of the Merciful Deep by Leslie Penelope. It is an homage to black towns in America that have been put underwater. I am reading it. It is very good so far. She's coming on the show at the end of May to discuss the book because it comes out June 4th. So the episode for this will also come out on June 4th, but great book so far. And that is it. We are done. And there's another episode coming out next week with Sylvester Barzy, who's a horror author, Black India horror author. And we are going to be discussing his book, Youngbloods, so be sure to look out for that. And that's it, y'all. Follow Chelsea, subscribe to her Patreon, subscribe to my Patreon. All the socials will be down below in the description box. So that's it, y'all. Until next time, you know what to do. Out. I was waiting for her to say, like she started the last one. She's like, don't be racist, read a book. I was waiting for it.
I didn't do it this time. I'm being nice. I'm being good.
All right, y'all. So until next time, you know what to do. Grab a book and read. And we are out.
Bye.
Thank you for lending me your ear today. If you've enjoyed this independent podcast, you can help me continue to shine the light on Black authors and their stories by becoming a patron at patreon.com/betweenthereads or by giving a one-time gift at www.ko-fi.com/betweenthereadspodcast. That's ko-fi.com/betweenthereadspodcast. Tune in next time for another great episode.